There's a man in ancient China who convinced the most powerful woman in the empire, the Queen Mother herself, that he was a eunuch. He was not a eunuch. He had 2 sons with her to prove it. This is going to require some explanation. His name was Lao Ai, and for a few years in the 3rd century BCE, he was arguably the second most powerful person in China. He had armies, he had land, he had a title, he had a palace. He also had a party trick. He could spin a wooden cartwheel using only his, let's say, 3rd leg as the axle. I want to be very clear that this is in the official historical record. Sima Qian, China's most respected ancient historian, wrote this down on purpose in a serious book. That's how this whole mess started. This is the story of Lao Ai, a man who faked a royal appointment, slept his way into the inner court of the Qin dynasty, and came within a breath of reshaping the entire course of Chinese history. And the reason he got caught? He tried to start a coup. Which, when you're a fake eunuch hiding inside the most paranoid royal court in Chinese history, is a catastrophic brain fart. The kind historians still shake their heads at 23 centuries later. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because to understand how Lao Ai ended up here, you need to understand the woman who let him in. The year is roughly 240 BCE. The Qin state is a military powerhouse steadily swallowing its rival kingdoms, the project that will eventually unify China under the first emperor, Qin Shi Huang. But Qin Shi Huang is a child right now. He's maybe 13, 14 years old. He won't take direct control for another decade. In the meantime, someone has to actually run the country. That someone is his mother, Lady Zhao, the Queen Dowager. Lady Zhao's history is complicated. Before she was a queen, she was a concubine. Before she was a concubine, she may have been a courtesan. Historical sources debate the specifics, but the general picture is consistent. She was a woman who rose dramatically through a world that did not hand power to women. She was also, according to ancient sources, someone who enjoyed the company of men, which, to be clear, is not remarkable. What is remarkable is how this fact became a massive political vulnerability that an extraordinarily clever and opportunistic man decided to exploit. That man was Lu Buwei. Lu Buwei was a merchant turned chancellor, enormously wealthy, politically brilliant, and in possession of what might be the most audacious origin story in Chinese political history. It's widely recorded that he had previously been Lady Zhao's lover, possibly even before she entered the royal court, and that he had essentially gifted her to a Qin prince as a strategic investment. That sentence gets stranger the longer you think about it, but it worked. The prince became king, Lady Zhao became queen, Lu Buwei became chancellor. And then, even after she became the Queen Dowager, the two of them apparently continued their arrangement. This was obviously a problem. A chancellor sleeping with the regent of the empire is the kind of rumor that ends careers and lives. Lu Buwei knew this, so he came up with a solution. He would find the replacement, and that's where this story takes a genuinely strange turn. Lu Buwei knew a man named Lao Ai. By all accounts, Lao Ai was physically impressive and apparently notable in at least one very specific regard. The ancient historian Sima Qian, writing in the Shiji, our primary source for all of this, wrote that Lao Ai could spin a cartwheel using his Johnson as an axle. This is not a metaphor. This is not folklore. This is in the official dynastic history of China, sandwiched between records of military campaigns and tax policy. Lu Buwei evidently agreed it was relevant. He arranged for Lao Ai to perform this demonstration for Lady Zhao. She was interested. We move on. The problem was access. The inner quarters of the palace were restricted. Only eunuchs, castrated male servants, were permitted near the Queen Dowager, If Lao Ai was going to get anywhere near Lady Zhao, he needed to either be a eunuch or appear to be one. He chose the second option. According to the Shiji, a fake castration was performed. We don't know exactly what this entailed, whether it was cosmetic, staged, or involved bribing officials, but the records state that Lao Ai had his eyebrows and beard removed and that officials were bribed to certify the procedure as legitimate. Then he was presented to the Queen Dowager as a palace attendant. She knew he wasn't actually a eunuch. That was rather the point, and just like that, Yu Wei had transferred his problem to someone else entirely. What he hadn't calculated was how far that someone else would run with it. Lady Zhao didn't just take a lover, she made Lao Ai her project. She moved him out of the capital, ostensibly because she was pregnant. Twice, in fact, and wanted privacy during the pregnancies. The births were concealed, the children were hidden. The official story was that she had retired to the Young Palace for religious seclusion. And while all of that was happening, Lao Ai was accumulating power at a pace that suggests either extraordinary ambition or a catastrophic lack of self-preservation instinct. Possibly both. To be clear, this is a man whose entire position depended on the secret not getting out. The one job he had, the only real job, was to be invisible. And instead of lying low, he became one of the most visibly powerful men in the empire. There's a moment in the Shiji that captures this beautifully. At a drunken banquet, Lao Ai got into a fight with a royal relative, and in the middle of this argument, he glared at the man and reportedly said, "I am the stepfather of the king of Qin. How dare you provoke me? Stepfather of the future first emperor of China." Said out loud at a party, in front of witnesses. This man was not built for espionage. The man he said it to reported it. Of course he did. And now the young king, Qin Shi Huang, no longer a child, increasingly in control of his own court, knew exactly what had been happening under his nose. This is where it gets dangerous. The investigation the king ordered confirmed everything. Lao Ai was not a eunuch. He had fathered 2 sons with the Queen Mother. The castration had been faked. Officials had been bribed. The entire arrangement had been running, hidden in plain sight, for years. Facing exposure and almost certain execution, Lao Ai made the decision that defined his legacy. He tried to launch a coup. In 238 BCE, while the king was away from the capital, attending a coming-of-age ceremony, which is exactly the kind of scheduling detail that makes you wonder how much Lao Ai was paying attention. He forged the Queen Mother's seal and mobilized forces. He summoned soldiers. He marched on the palace. The king was informed in time. Royal troops were dispatched. The 2 forces met near the Qin capital. Lao Ai lost decisively. The Shiji records that the king offered rewards to anyone who captured Lao Ai's men alive rather than killing them, which suggests this was less a military engagement and more a controlled suppression of a badly organized rebellion. Lao Ai fled. He was captured shortly after, and then the accounting began. The punishment handed down was one of the most severe in recorded Qin history. Lao Ai was subjected to the 5 punishments and then executed by being torn apart by horse-drawn carriages, a method called 5-horse dismemberment. His entire clan, to the 3rd degree of relation, was exterminated. The 2 sons he had with Lady Zhao were killed. The historical record is blunt about this. Lady Zhao was stripped of her role and placed under house arrest. The king, her son, initially issued an edict, making it a capital offense to suggest he reconciled with her. He later relented, influenced by the advice of several officials who argued carefully that punishing a mother so publicly would damage the king's reputation. She was restored to a degree of status, though never to real power. Yu Wei, the man who had engineered the entire situation in the first place, was removed from his chancellorship. He was sent away from the capital. Then he received a letter from the king that, reading between the lines, made clear what was coming next. he drank poison and died. So the final tally, the fake eunuch executed, his sons executed, his entire family to the third degree of relation executed. His patron, the man who started all of this, dead by his own hand. The Queen Mother, stripped of power and placed under house arrest by her own son, all because of a cartwheel demonstration that someone thought was a good idea. Qin Shi Huang went on to conquer the remaining warring states, unify China, declare himself the first emperor, standardize currency and writing across an entire civilization, and build the foundation of what would become the world's most populated country. The man who may have been his half-brother, one of Lao Ai's concealed sons, didn't survive to see any of it. The Shiji was written roughly a century after these events by Sima Qian, a historian who was himself subjected to castration by the Han Emperor for writing something the emperor didn't like. He recorded Lao Ai's story in meticulous, almost enthusiastic detail: the cartwheel, the fake procedure, the hidden children, the coup, the dismemberment, all of it preserved for 2,000 years, which means that a castrated historian is the reason we know the full story of the man who faked being castrated. History, it turns out, has a long memory for exactly the kind of secret you most wanted kept.